Alluring Kashmir, the book called You could sit on Alluring Kashmir. There's various books you could sit on. We have the Light on Yoga over here. Radiant Sutra is not such a good translation of the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Quantum Enigma, Tantra Illuminated. That's a good book to read. Probably quite a good book to sit on too. Mahamudra Tantra. Various books. Anyway, you can sit on books. That way works pretty well. As I say, with crossed legs, you would sit on a book or a couple of books or blocks if you've got them. If your lower back was down low, it's sort of squashed a little bit, and you make sure there's a gap between the legs and pelvis. If you're sitting on more than one block, like two, then a blanket would go underneath your shins just to stop your legs traveling ad infinitum. So that would be very loosely draped like that. If you haven't got a blanket, obviously you can use whatever you have got. So that towels are great. I always think that towels are one of the best things for yoga ever. If I've got a towel, I can do yoga. If I haven't got a towel, I can do yoga too. But they're very, very useful. You can roll them up. They can go underneath you for slippage, for Paschimottanasana and so on. Okay, well, it's 1 o'clock now, so we'll start in earnest. We're sitting crossed-legged, whether we're on a block or not, as just described. We're breathing nasally. If crossed-legged position is difficult, obviously kneeling's fine. You can put a block between the heels and buttocks. And then interocept. Begin to perceive the inside of your bodily experience. And that big part of that is your breath. Very big part of that is your breath. So the breath comes into something that's expressing that we're feeling on the inside, we're moving on the inside of our living experience here and now. I often find there's movement, pelvis might move forwards or backwards, and of course the whole back might go along with that. They're not random movements, they're purposed movements, and their purpose is to draw us in. So a few more breaths like this. Hands can be as you like. Jnana mudra, chin mudra, adi mudra, brahma mudra. Ganesha mudra even, I guess. But just breathing freely. I'll sing a blessing mantra to start the class in earnest. So you just listen. You can bring your hands to your heart. It's in Sanskrit. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, mrityoma amritam gamaya, asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, mrityoma amritam gamaya, asatoma satgamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, mrityoma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Now a deep breath from everyone together. Deep in, deep out. And everything's about the breath, so take another after that. And another after that, and so on and so forth. Take a few deep breaths. So everything's about the breath, so we're giving to the breath. Giving to the breath. Giving what? Everything? body is given to the breath. So any movements that the body takes are an expression of the freedom of the breath being prioritized in our experience. If you prioritize the freedom of your breath, then everything comes to serve that. Release your hands slow and easy. Back to Jnana Mudra. Or if you're kneeling, it might be better to be in Bhairavi or Bhairava Mudra. As long as your spine's upright, that's what we're interested in, spine upright. Then we're going to inhale and lift from both inner groins. So inhale. Exhale, right hand on the floor behind you, left hand crosses over both legs. Keep the jaw passive, don't overturn. Those of you who watched yesterday's class, which I hope to be able to post up onto YouTube later. So we've got YouTube as well. You know, if you can't make these classes on time, that's another way you can watch them. And so, you know, when we talked about it yesterday, we talked about overturning as being expressed in several different ways. One of them is that you don't feel, if you turn too far, your spine between the sitting bones. So you have to really, really tune in on that, the spine between the sitting bones. So that takes time. Tuning in is a specially chosen word. So you can tune in between the left and right buttock. And there's movement. There's tuning in of muscles, of course. The support structure. We often used to think, of course, of the bony structure of the body as the support. But there's another way of thinking, which is where you think about the softer tissues supporting the bones. Because, of course, they tell which way the bones are going to go. So muscles, muscle habits, fascial traits, or vasana, they're part of what you're easing out. They're part of what you're sensing as you sit between the sitting bones. Head can turn, or, you know, doesn't have to turn far. Inhale, lift from both inner groins. Keep lifting, keep turning, keep lifting and turning, and round to the other side. Again, breathing through your nose. Let's hear some deep breaths. I know I can't actually hear them, but, you know, I can sense them. You know, I can sense them. So take some deep breaths. I think that's, you know, right now, I mean, it's always the case, isn't it? But right now, even more than ever, breath is so central, so important. And so many people, without even knowing it, are breathing in a more and more shallow way. The diaphragm a little locked, and it massively affects your anatomy. It massively affects your physiology. So take deep breaths, expressive breaths. Tune in on your spine between the sitting bones as a meditation. Because meditation means becoming absorbed. You know, you disappear. You disappear. So breath, 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 tuning in again. We know one way to ascertain whether you're overturning or not is to feel, to notice whether you're aligned between the left and right sitting. We're going to tune in on that. And another way that we know that we're not centered would be just that, a sense that we're sort of drawn out, you know, grasping, peripheral. So I don't know if you can feel it. I can feel it when I'm drawn out, when I'm reaching out, upadana, when I'm reaching out of my center towards something, you know, something I'm anxious about, or an idea of the future, or an idea of the past, something I'm regretting in the past, something I'm worried about in the future, or some sort of sense of myself in the present. All of that is reaching out. It's interesting and important to notice that it's not just past and future, but grasping about a sense of self in the present. Turn back to the center. Palms up. Let's hear a deep breath. Inhale when you're ready. Exhale. And again, not just one, but let a few come and go. Let a few come and go. Deep breaths. Jaw passive, eyes soft, brain soft, shoulders relaxed. Give your fingers a little wiggle. So we've been sitting there a little while. Now we're going to take a block. If you haven't got a block, a neatly folded towel. Towels are great, as I mentioned before, or a book. You know, there's just the books that are up here in this room that we're videoing from now. But various books that you've got. Taking the block or the book or the towel and sitting on it with your legs over to one side of the pelvis, ready for Bharadvajasana. So in this pose, the knees can be a little way apart. The knees and legs should be facing straight ahead. The top leg, which in this case should be your left leg, somewhere between the talus, the top bone of the foot, and the lower part of the shin bones, the shin bone, that crosses over the arch of the other foot. So there's physical contact between that upper leg and the lower foot. And you can adjust it. You can see I'm lifting and moving. And there's a sense of tuning in, or sense of realigning. As you're moving, you're stretching various tissues. So you stretch and you pull and you find your way through and you align the tissues intuitively. Your breath is the guru. Your breath is telling you whether or not they're attuned or not. If you feel a little pulled out, if you feel uncertain, you know you're peripheral to the center. You have to tune in, because the opposite of uncertainty, of course, is certainty, or it's called in yoga vidya. Vidya means to know. Uncertainty is where you don't know. So you know by being centered. That's just the knowing faculty. When you're not centered, when you're pulled out of your center to the peripherals, peripherals are fine. We all feel peripherals. But if you feel them from the center, no problem. But if you get pulled out of your center to the peripherals, peripherals being thoughts, feelings, emotions, physical sensations, then you're in the realm of not knowing. Inhale, lift from your groins. Exhale, turn away from your feet, one hand on the floor behind you, cupped. Fingertips on the floor like that. And the other hand goes onto the outside of the leg. Palm can face in or out. As some of you know who've been coming to classes in the last 10, 15 years, in that last 10, 15 year period of my teaching and practice, I've been a palm in guy. Before that, for the 10 or so, how long? 10 or 15 years before that, I was a palm out guy. And you know what? I'm beginning to feel like I'm going back to another phase of palm out again after so many years. But they both have different things. Palm in is quietening. Many of us need that quietening right now. Centering, again, we need that. Breath centering. Palm out, you know, it's an invitation to open up into fearlessness. Now, fearlessness is not where you don't have fear. The nervous system has fear when it's conditioned to have fear by circumstances that are fearful. Huh? And there are many such circumstances. That's normal, it's not personal. Now, fearlessness is where you realize that you are not that fear. It's there, it's part of prakriti, we call in yoga. So that's, you know, it's a very loving attitude towards whatever's happening in the nervous system, and therefore in the muscular system, therefore in the breathing system, and of course in the mind. All of these belong to her prakriti. Now turn back, take a breath. I want to hear it. I just want to imagine I can hear it, and then take another. And another, you know, all about the breath. It's all about the breath. So just keep taking them, you know, giving to the breath. It's not contrived, it's not you doing something, it's giving to the breath. Yajna, to sacrifice yourself, constructed self, to a higher knowing. Ishvara pranitanatva. That means like ish means to master, to know, to be a master of something. So to give to this part of your experience that knows. Both legs over to the other side if you haven't already. Same thing, the top leg, which in this case should be your right leg, crosses over some point down low in the tibia, in the shin bone, across the arch of the other foot, which of course is pointing to the side. So your feet are sort of crossed. One foot pointing back, that's the top foot, the other pointing laterally. Lift and shift if you haven't already. Make sure there's a gap between the legs. I'm hoping some of you can feel in the thigh of the back leg tension exposed, and thereby tension beginning to release. Breath is your faculty manager here. He manages this release, combined with attention, meditative, absorbed attention. Then we're going to lift and turn away from the feet, Keep that jaw passive, those eyes passive. And don't overturn. We've already discussed that in previous postures. Overturning is where you turn without feeling yourself sat between the sitting bones. But it's more than that, it's also feeling like you're reaching out to the peripherals. That's called overturning. All action from the center is yoga, from the heart center. So it just means you've got to be in the heart center, and then everything you do, think or say, is yoga. Karana Shakti Svato Anubhavat. It's from the Shiva Sutra, and it kind of describes karana, actions or expressions. Many of the yoga movements were called karana. We still have a viparita karani based on that karana. Karana Shakti, the true power of expression, swato, one's own, anubhavat, experience. The true power of expression comes from one's experience of, in this case, the heart center, what is truly one's own. Return back to center. Deep breaths, more than one. And then you can dismount from your block, books, towel, whatever you're using. And we're going to come into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So come onto your hands and knees. Doesn't matter which way you face, because I don't have to do classroom management, because it doesn't matter, just because I don't have to. There's only technically one of you at a time. Now, make sure your hands are facing the same way as each other. Middle fingers face forwards. Have a look. And also make sure they're equidistant from the front and sides of the mat. And make sure they're spread. And make sure the middle fingers both face forwards. So you really want to spend a bit of time spreading the palms well. You can feel the palms have this sort of connective tissue, this sort of webbing, if you like. And it's really nice to spend a bit of time spreading there. From there, lift up your bum, push backwards, breathe deeply if you can through your nose, and investigate movements left, movements right, and breathing, of course. And the point of moving left or right is to feel through your back. And of course, many of us feel it in our legs, so it's totally fine to go light on one leg, even to lift it so you really stretch through one only at a time. It means it's less full on because you're not getting it both legs at the same time. That's one way. Another way is to bend one knee and then the other, just to kind of massage through the hamstrings, which are often very tight at first. We don't have to do that. That's just if it's helpful to you. But just pushing sideways, moving the pelvis left, moving the pelvis right, breathing through your nose. And what would be wonderful if you can start tuning in on your inner armpits. The Iyengar call it the armpit chest. That's in the Iyengar school, they talk that way, clipping things and pasting them together, armpit chest. But what it means is the outer chest, the inner armpit, and it's a very important area to be aware of. Because you can tune in on stretching it, and if you balance that or measure that against the stretch up from just below your elbows, it's an incredible focus to get those two things stretching or lengthening equally, the outer arm, the inner armpit. Really good discipline. Well done. Okay, come down. You've probably been there long enough. Sitting in Vajrasana, that's regular kneeling. Now, some of you probably know, but you might not, need a rolled up blanket underneath the front ankles. If you get cramp in the foot arches, you feel tight in the ankles, that's for you. If you feel your knees are tight, put a block between your buttocks and heels, or a towel, or whatever you've got there at home. And then it's nasal breathing if you can. If not, use a Jalaneti pot, nasal cleaning pot. I've got a video on YouTube telling you how to do it if you've not done it before. And then you're moving, I often find anyway, moving side to side on the shins, kind of rolling. I find that really useful, or rather I can make that useful by using the movements to kind of massage, to find my way into, to submerge into her Prakriti. Prakriti is a feminine term in Sanskrit, comes from pra or which is the same as para, which is the same as param, which means ultimate. Then kriti, creation. The ultimate creation means everything. The thoughts that are created, feelings are created, physical sensations, cats and dogs, and flowers and trees, and everything that's created belongs to her. And she is one, it said. So it's one field of interconnection. So physical sensations are part of a bigger field. We imagine they exist only in my field, but they're part of a bigger field. Other things are having an influence on our thoughts, feelings, emotions, absolutely. And our physical sensations, absolutely. It's not all happening behind our skin, as it were. We just can't see the bigger picture, so we confuse and think it's mine. But by moving side to side, you could soften and draw into her. This, in other words, draw into your physical sensations. And they're subtly changing. And because they're subtly changing, they're sort of lapping over one another. Gripping is usurped. And because gripping is usurped, gripping is where your attention goes to something as if it's mine. Then what truly is you, which stands behind all this gripping and confusion, what truly is you is revealed. Tada drastu swarupe avastanam. It's from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So you could, I could carry on with this. But for some people, it's not so much fun, this bit. So we're going to come out of it by stretching our legs out in front of us. Now, here again, it's highly advantageous for many people to sit on a block, or if you happen, some of you have got yoga stuff at home, if you happen to have two of these kind of blocks, you'd put them short end to short end, so that you could sit in the middle of the two blocks, short end to short end, and there'd be space for your hands on each block either side. If you only got one block, that's fine too, or a book or a folded towel. The thing you really need to do is check whether you need to sit on a block or not. Maybe you know already, fine, sit on a block. If you don't know, draw the buttock out and back as I'm doing here. Lean forwards to one side as you adjust the buttock on the other, and vice versa. And then you're tuning in on the inner front edge of your ischial tuberosities. That's the sort of fancy pants way of saying sitting bones. We have a skeleton here. We can see the ischial tuberosities on there. Underneath there, the ischial tuberosities. So these are sitting bones. And we're going towards the inner and front edge of the sitting bones, the inner front edge of the sitting bones. And once you've used your buttock flesh to adjust, and then you try sitting up tall, drag your hands back from next to your knees to next to your hips, and then try sitting up tall. If you can't feel any lift in your lumbar and you're not sitting on a block, relax everything, get a block, and then draw the buttock flesh out. So there's an opportunity now for you to get a block if you find you couldn't get any lift in the lumbar without it. If you're not sure if you've got any lift in the lumbar, you didn't. When you feel it, it's there. Then we're breathing. This is called Dandasana, and we're moving the pelvis. We've already talked about this earlier. Not mechanically, but just investigatively. Very subtle movements to help you tune in. They're not pre-prescribed. They're not prescribed previously. You're tuning in. And you're tuning in on optimal positioning. And it's optimal because you feel lightness through the lumbar. And you often find that you get lightness with this position and then it fades and you have to move to another position. So you keep the lightness by keeping movement often. So you keep the lightness through the lumbar, through the deep belly, through psoas muscle, coming through the deep belly, sides of the lower spine. And there's thousands of subtle adjustments in this pose, apart from the movement of the pelvis to find uprightness. You could also make the balls of your feet smile, which means They sort of spread from the big toe side to the little toe side, and the same across the heels. And the reason I give it the emotional coloring, calling it smile, is because it does need to have that level of integrity. It needs to have your emotions included, or the emotions included. And there's thousands and more things to say on the basis of broad feet, like deep outer shins that comes, but it's all very meditative. The next phase of this pose, Dandasana, is probably, probably haven't got time for, because it's probably tiring. You might have even come out of it. Some of you, I sense one or two of you have. But if not, you can also concentrate on the next stage, drop lifting. The bones drop at the top of the thighs like a stone drops through water. Boom, straight down. It's not pushing, you're dropping. You're abstaining from doing that which is holding them up subconsciously. So it's dropping like a stone drops. You just let it go, boom. And then you get the spontaneous lifting. Drop lifting. Thigh bones drop, the spine lifts, boom. They're completely synchronous. They go together. Okay, I'm sure you've had enough. I haven't. In fact, you might have done, I don't know. But anyway, it's a tough pose for many of us. So we're going to come out of that. We're going to lay on our backs in Supta Sukhasana. So come towards one end of your mat and simply cross your legs. Now, there is a possibility that one or two of you might find your backs tight during this. I'm sure many people have got tight backs at the moment because of the way the diaphragm and the psoas interact. So if you do have a tight back after crossing your legs, we're going to tuck the buttocks under, we're going to come down to the elbows and so on. But those of you whose backs feel tight, raise the feet up. You can put them on blocks, 2 blocks, long side to long side. That works really well. Or again, a towel neatly folded, or a couple of towels, or one big towel if you've got some of those lovely expensive towels people have. So the legs are lifted, the feet are lifted if your back's tight. Otherwise, either way, we're stretching the sitting bones or the pelvis towards the heels. And then if you can, stretch the arms over your head. Now, if you can't, well, that's fine. Just take them out to the side as far up as you can comfortably. But remember that movement can help. In other words, if you lift each arm multiple times, you can take, say, the right arm towards the left and the left arm towards the right, alternately, quite a lot of times. And as you're doing that, you're working the shoulder blades out and up, out and up, out away from the spine and up, as it were, towards the head. And in so doing, you make the shoulder joint where the arm meets the shoulder blade under considerably less strain, because you're moving the base of the joint, the shoulder blade itself. So don't think, oh, I'm so stiff in the shoulders, I can't do this. If you move your shoulder blades through repetition, you can get quite far. Once you've played out the shoulders, deep breaths. Let's hear it. Take a few. Deep breaths. Make sure your neck's relaxed. Nasal, if you can, nasal breathing. And over time, the neck just keeps relaxing and relaxing and relaxing. You can adjust the shoulders anytime you want to. Vajrasati yoga, well, I say Vajrasati yoga, I don't want to tar everyone in the school the same, but when my version of Vajrasati yoga, I used to always say last year and the year before, wiggle when you wanna. And I joked that was the Vajrasati sort of catchphrase. But actually, it's more about something like the catchphrase is more like it's all about the breath. Change the cross of your legs in situ. And you might find it useful to bring your arms forwards, I do, and to the top of the buttocks, just below the posterior superior iliac spine, the bony crest at the top of the back pelvis, just tuck under. Once you've done that, then again, that movement of your arms, lift each arm, you can sway, almost swaying the whole upper body to some extent if it's effective. And you're massaging and hydrating the various tissues, the fascia, or the myofascia, which is the muscle and the fascia, because you can't separate them. It's ridiculous to think of separating them for reasons we could talk about, but we can go information or just experience. So let's go more to experience. And take deep breaths. Okay, deep breaths. Adjust those shoulders whenever you want to, as many times as is useful. And deep breaths. Deep breaths. For some, this is a wonderful pose to stay. You know, the release of your inner thighs, some depth in the hips, which feels really good for the muscles and the gluteals and the tense fascia lata, and these various muscles that really have to be tracked, which is connective tissue on the outer leg. Feels great. We're going to bring the legs back towards each other so that the soles of the feet come down on the floor. And just lift your bum and tuck it under. Now we're going to bring our arms forwards again, because some of you will want to very much, because many of us are hypertense in the shoulders. It's a very, it's super rife, partly because we're shouldering the weight of the world, trying to be somebody, trying to be somebody by reaching out into ideas that have been sown in the peripheral experience by society, by your conditioning, by your life story. These are peripheral, they're orbiting around, they're part of Prakriti, they're part of everything. They're not part of you as a sort of unique, sort of separate being, you know. They're just part of the flow of nature, and that's wonderful. It's wonderful to realize that this is not mine, you know, it's everything's. We're not renouncing it, saying it's nothing to do with me. It's not that. It's that it's not only mine, it's everything's. Stretch your arms down towards your feet and hold your yoga mat if you have a yoga mat. If you don't have a yoga mat, it's fine to just stretch the arms down. And you can either have the palms up, which I recommend, or down if you prefer. But up is better because you've got that external rotation of the arms and you release the pressure from the shoulders pressing onto the collarbones, and therefore from the collarbones pressing onto your breastbone. And thereby, you can open your chest when you come up into the pose, which is not impeded by the collarbones on the breastbone. So you're either holding your mat firmly, really drawing your shoulders down away from your ears, or if you haven't got a mat, it's palms up. Bring your heels close to your bum. Tone your tummy in a wave, which means it draws in and up. So the tummy draws in, chest pulls the tummy, so the chest draws up. Inhale. Exhale, lift your bum up. Doesn't have to lift high. You can move it there. You can move it right. You can bounce it. You can sway it. You can tilt it. You're looking for length. Huh? You're looking for length in the lower back. You do want height eventually, but not at the expense of length of the lower back. And we don't want that height either to produce gripping of the buttocks towards each other. They remain nice and loose in terms of their gripping towards each other. They are, of course, toned, but they're just not squeezing in towards each other. So you move left and right and up and down. And the third element is to find the pelvic floor. So you've got three elements. Keep the lower back long. Make sure the buttocks aren't gripping, and find the pelvic floor. And the elements are all being served by tilting, swaying, bouncing, and swooping the pelvis. So you can mix those actions up, and they're just serving this general goal. As you come further up, you might turn your arms out, you know, even more. Still hold the mat if you're holding the mat, but turn the arms out even more. And again, avoiding gripping the buttocks together, avoiding shortening the lower back or tightening it, and finding the pelvic floor so you can still move as ways in. Slow and easy, come down. Turn your arms inwardly as you come down. Walk your feet a bit further away from your bum, but keep your knees bent. Put your hands under your head, fingers interlaced. Let's have a deep breath. Come on. Deep in, deep out. And not just one, is it? It's several. In fact, we can just lay open into the breath together. We can just give ourselves to the breath here and now. You know, I'm yours, we say to the breath. I'm yours. Very, very lovely experience. And actually you're benefiting tremendously every breath that comes and goes that's unobstructed, that's unimpeded, that's allowed. Now walk your feet a bit closer back to your bum again. And this time using your abdominal muscles, you'll feel them pulling on the bottom of the breastbone, you'll feel them pulling on the bottom of the ribs. Inhale. And as you exhale, just lift up and peer towards your own navel. Movements, of course, are allowed that help you here and now, but you don't have to. You know, sometimes you've just got to listen first, you know. Sometimes the movements are very subtle. So we're gazing towards Nabha Chakra, the navel center, as Patanjali calls it, which is one of the meditations recommended in the Patanjali Yoga Shastra, the Shastra being the text and the commentaries. And you're breathing as you focus on these very subtle changes, which you can only feel if you're not projecting onto the body. And you'll know you're not projecting if the breath is expressive and free. Remember, your abdominals are lifting up, so your neck shouldn't, or lifting up your ribs, rather, your neck shouldn't feel straight. To get the abdominals to really engage, push the lower back down into the floor. Okay, come back down nice and slow. You can feel the abdominals eccentrically contract. They're lowering your body, and then you deep breathe. Take a deep breath, take a lot, take a few. So deep breath here is a space holder. It's a way of describing a spontaneous breath that's unimpeded. A breath that indicates that you're not reaching out to an idea that you've memorized or thought was clever or, you know, have somehow been encouraged to believe in. And instead, it's an expression from the core center, real knowing. Now release your hands from behind your head and roll over to face towards me, or rather your device through which I am streaming, whatever that means. Now we're going to support our heads with our hands, support the head with the hand. So the positioning is important, obviously. There's a bony prominence of the skull just behind the ear called the mastoid process. You kind of want to cover that mastoid process. You want to cover that. Then you're going to take the hand that's not supporting your head, press into the floor, lift your bottom ribs and stretch them. Stretch, 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 stretch. And do that a few times, lifting and stretching, so you feel more and more contact with the floor. You lift and stretch, lift, stretch. You know, your own way. You get more, it feels as if there's more space between the ribs. Of course, there isn't really, but certainly the connective tissue between the ribs, the intercostals and so on, they get stretched, huh? They get lengthened, and that feels good. Feels really good. All the fascia, the superficial fascia near the skin, you know, that's all stretched too. Then the elbow is also extended, because otherwise you just jammed everything up. So make sure you open your armpit. And then breathing deep, take your top leg and lift it. Bending at the knee, hinging at the hip, reflexing and extending the hip and even the knee as well, with a purpose. The purpose is to build tone, you know, tonal sensation in the hip, in the muscles of the hip. And those muscles of the hip, they bring that tone, they bring an epicenter for your focus, like a point of what's called in tantric yoga a bindu. Bindu is also mentioned in Hatha Yoga, but it has a slightly different meaning, which we won't talk about now. So you just keep working on deepening and creating that intensity in the hip, that focal point in the hip. Don't forget to breathe. I know you are breathing, but you know, like breathe. You know what I mean? Breathe into it. You're going between horizontal and vertical, as I said. So that you're building up that tone, and when you feel ready, we're going to flex and externally rotate. I hope you can keep the tone. So on an exhale, flex and externally rotate the leg. So if you can keep that tone in the hip joint area, then there's going to be a selfless release of the inner thigh. We want to keep turning ourselves to the realization of selflessness of Prakriti, nature. So we're using one of the rules of nature, if you like. One way of putting it. So it's a rule of nature, reciprocal inhibition. By toning one side of the joint, the other side spontaneously releases. By toning one side of the joint, the other side spontaneously releases, lengthens. That is to say, the inner thigh lengthens. By itself, though. That's why it's selfless. You breathe into that. Of course, there's another part to this. By the way, if you're wobbly, bend your lower leg, so that you're not wobbly. Another part to this is to reach through and hold your big toe through the inside of your leg, not the outside. Index finger, middle finger, and thumb make a loop, not a hook, but a loop. Make it a really good loop. So you might reiterate that sort of mudra element of it, that sealed element of it. And you breathe into that. One or two people might enjoy beginning to extend the leg or not. You don't have to. We often say that a great yogini or yogin, talking about generally, gets more and more from less and less. So if you're getting what you need, that is a portal to come into this living experience. And of course, when you come into the living experience, it negates grasping. You get what you need with the leg bent, that's great. You don't need any more. If you need to stimulate your sensations a little bit more to sort of draw them away from the past and future or ideas about yourself in the present, then you can begin to experiment. Straighten the leg a little or a lot. It's not about it being straight, however. Not about it being straight. It's about the breath. So the bottom line is you're keeping it in the hip either way, straight leg or not. Keeping it in the hip. The reciprocal inhibition rule also works for the back thigh if you are straightening the leg, so tone the front thigh intelligently, which means sort of wake up the front thigh in the way that most conduces to the back thigh release. Wake up the front thigh in the way that most conduces to the back thigh release, and so you send some energy through it, influencing energy, sort of calming energy through it. Okay, bring your leg back down when you're ready. Knees up, come up from the side, push with your hands. Sit up for a moment, you can have a look around, see wherever you are. And then bring your legs down the other side. And similarly, extend your bottom ribs several times, multiple times. Extend your bottom ribs. So resting your head on the mastoid process, whether your hand is turned one way or slightly the other, it's up to you to find what's most supportive and peaceful for your neck muscles. The other hand, as I say, presses, you lift and extend, lift and extend, lift and extend, lift and extend multiple times to stretch the tissues between the ribs, near the skin, superficial fascia, which is the fascia that holds the fat cells, and then extend the elbow to nasal breathing, if you can, certainly on the way in, minimally on the way in if you can, because it filters, you can feel it as you breathe, filters and warms and humidifies the incoming. So that's important. Obviously, if you extended the bottom ribs, I hope you've also extended your armpit, if you haven't, do that now. And then start with the top leg, up it comes. Flexing and extending between the horizontal and vertical planes. This pose is called Anantasana. Between the horizontal and vertical planes. And you're building that tone in the top of the outer thigh. It acts as a bindu, a focal point through which to disappear, comparable to a singularity in physics, a black hole. A focal point. So a singularity is something if you were to be able to survive to go through it, you would reappear in somewhere else, maybe another universe, even it's speculated, certainly perhaps another galaxy, or at least another part of your own galaxy, but somewhere else, you disappear and reappear. So in the same way, create an epicenter of intensity which is one way you could poetically describe a black hole. An epicenter of intensity in your hip, and you will disappear through it and re-arise in a new universe. That's the universe of Prakriti, of the living moment, rather than your descriptions about it, the living moment. You've got to breathe all the time, deeply and honestly. Keep creating that tone. When you feel ready, we're going to flex and externally rotate, usually best done on the exhalation. So it's like this. Flexing and externally rotating. Jaw soft. Breathing deep. I've seen a couple of people have put messages up, but unfortunately I can't see what they say, partly because the phone's really far away that's recording, but also I haven't got my glasses on, so apologies whatever whoever is messaging about. Okay, keep that tone in the hip, focus on that tone in the hip, breathe deep. You can build it as well as keeping it. You can build it, and then reach through the inside of the leg, index finger, middle finger, and thumb. So you make a loop, and remember, it should be a loop, not a hook. So really spend a bit of time making the mudra. Mudra meaning a seal, hasta mudra, hand seal, but it's make that mudra because it, what you do with your body happens to every part of your being. You're negating the reaching out tendency, so that you can truly feel yourself centering. When you're ready, or if you're ready, you might not need to do this bit, but if you want, you can extend the leg or can extend and descend. Remember, if you understand the purpose, then you won't need to double check in with me or something like that. The purpose is to create the epicenter, the intensity, the richness that draws you in. So you make it so rich that you can't help get sucked into it, like other rich experiences that you get sucked into. Sipping coffee. I've seen people sipping coffee who like coffee. They tend to, if I remember correctly, get their coffee, they look pleased with themselves, and then they inhale the coffee steam like that, maybe a couple of times, and then they sip it as if it was something holy, like, oh, and they merge with it because it's intense. That's not, if you're not a coffee drinker, it might happen with chocolate, it might happen with sunsets, it might happen with smelling flowers, it might happen with sliding into a warm bath. That's what you're using your body for. You want to make it more intense, like an intense coffee or an intensely beautiful sunset. Make it more intense. So you disappear into it. And movement can help. Movement can definitely help. Moving forwards, moving back. Breathing for sure. Breathing deep into it for sure. Okay, well done. Come down nice and calm and nice and easy. It's a good pose to spend quite a long time in. We're going to take 2 or 3 or 4 more deep breaths like that before we draw up our knees. Bring our elbow towards the body and push your way up. Now here you're going to definitely need a block or a book or something similar. So here I'm using a regular yoga block like that. The foam ones are better, especially if they're new, because when they get old they do atrophy a bit, but when they're new they're nice and firm, but also they stick, they're heavy, whereas those lightweight, I don't know what they're made of, something futuristic, they don't grip as well. A yoga brick is fine as well, like a cork brick or a bamboo brick, or a book, regular book. So just so I'm sort of joining in with anyone who might be using books only, I'm going to get a book down out of our shelf here and use that. What is this? The Doctrine of Vibration, the Analysis of the Doctrines and Practices of Kashmir Shaivism. Very good book. Recommend it to you if you like that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm going to use that. You've got a yoga block, fine. I just want to be with those that don't have this stuff. So Fold over one end of your mat. If you've got a thinner yoga mat, you might double fold it. You know, that is back on itself. So you've got a triple ply surface for your knee. Obviously, if you're on a carpet, as I am here, which is unusual for me, I don't usually practice on carpet. It's quite luxurious, actually. Then you might not need to fold the mat at all. Soft enough as it is. Then your foot comes onto your block, or the doctrine of vibration, spanda. In my case, the heel should line up with the knee. Huh? So you have to look, you have to check. And the standing leg should be very slightly sloping. Very slightly, not too much. You can overslope because you want your hip to go in and your groin to go up. In, up action. It feels great on the inner groin to get a good stretch there. Then you stretch your arms, lift your chest, turn your palms, lift your chest, raise your lead arm, lightly tone your tummy, inhale. Exhale, breathe deep, start looking up, breathing deep. Stretch your top arm up, and it's probably enough for most of us to go up. If you keep the tummy lightly toned, it keeps the pelvic floor integral. If you want to take the arm further over, that's fine. It's up to you, you just breathe into it. Real deep, real honest. The back of the front leg supports the front of the front leg. The back of the front leg, in other words, presses up, presses upwardly, gently. And then that encourages a sort of rolling of the tissue above it towards the pelvis. It's the back of the leg draws up, and if there's an into the body, as it were, then the tissue above it rolls up towards the pelvis. Like the way lava rolls, it kind of folds over itself. These are energetic instructions, of course. Inhale, come up. Well done. Parigasana. What a pose. Come down, just have a kneeling, sit for a moment and take a breath. Don't forget the block for those of you whose knees are tight, or blanket or towel. And then deep breaths, honest breaths. So it's all about the breath, everything. The longer you can stay with the breath, the better. It's nourishing you. Feel this profound nourishment. Second side. So move your book, block, whatever you're using, neatly folded towel. Towels are less good for this. So I'm sure everyone's got a book, but whatever you got, something firm. Towel's okay, but it's not the best. If you're folding your mat, then go ahead and do that. And then kneeling, and then extending your foot out to the block or book, whatever it is, and it lines up again. Let's remind ourselves with the knee. And again, let's remind ourselves not to overslope the standing leg. It shouldn't underslope either. It wouldn't be useful at all if it was straight, or even worse, pushed back, because it would be inevitable that you would side flex. Side flex means you're bending the trunk from the abdomen, the sides of the abdomen, which we don't want, because if you do that, your whole spine side flexes, and when it side flexes, because the joints on the back, the facet joints, they get compressed. These are the facet joints on the back here. So the facet joints are where one bone meets the other bone, one below and one above. So running along the whole of the back like that, the facet joints. So we don't want to compress there, so we don't side flex. So it's the pelvis that moves, and to facilitate that, the hamstrings have to move. So you have to tone your front thigh in a way that's effective as you stretch your arms out, turn your palms up, raise your lead arm, suck in that tummy. You can even bring your hand to it, it helps. So the tummy, get a bit sort of flamenco on the situation, if you know what I mean. Inhale, exhale, extending, looking up, and then raising the top arm. Maybe it comes over, maybe it doesn't. It's not important. Breathe deep into it. Jaw passive. This again, the hamstrings, you can feel that, I know, on your front leg. So to avoid those being overly tight, energy comes up, influencing energy through the front leg, supporting the leg from behind, as I mentioned before. Parigasana, crossbar of a gate. Hundreds of instructions potentially. We'll come up nice and easy, back to kneeling, and I've no doubt that you want to take some deep breaths now, so go ahead. If you can take a few, it's better than, every single one that comes is nourishing you, so take a few, take a few. while I reassemble this skeleton. You can then bring yourself up, unfold your mat, put your block, book, or whatever it is to one side, and bring yourself up to a standing position, Tadasana. So spread your toes with your feet together unless it's anatomically not possible. Say, for instance, if you've got arthritic knees, or if the legs press against each other in the thigh and makes it, bend your legs out, which wouldn't be healthy or pleasant. Or if you're pregnant, it's worth taking the feet apart. If they are apart, they should be level. Not one forwards, not one back, not one in, not one out, but level, as if you're standing on little railway tracks. That's how you align it, as if you're standing on little railway tracks. And the track would go between the gap between the second and third toe and out through the middle of the heel. Otherwise, feet together, as I said, and then lifting and spreading and landing your feet several times to spread and to massage the connective tissue on the feet, absolutely, but also up through the calves, up through the thighs, up even into the sitting bones, ischial tuberosities, into the hips, and through the whole body, in fact. Arms are relaxed. Breathe through your nose. Crown of the head super light, empty of grasping. Parigraha. Let's breathe deep. I'm still moving my feet, by the way. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just saying that, that's also available to you if it's helpful. Helps me because this massaging of the tissue really, really helps to get me into it. Instead of asserting my agenda onto the body, instead I merge. One merges with the body, disappears into the body. And in so doing, you see that it's all interconnected and you ride it like a surfer rides a wave. The chest muscles, release. Now that's not something you're doing. It's not like pulling your arms back or something. You just find the tension in the breath, in the muscles that's bringing the arms forwards. That habitual tension, that worry about the future, that regret about the past, that concern about who you're supposed to be, or doubt primarily is the main driver. Doubt about oneself in the present. So you just breathe. And by releasing your body tissues with your breath, you begin to release all this sort of physical armoring. So at times of, worry, we almost make our body into some sort of armor, as if that would protect us, but it doesn't protect us. What it does instead is makes us tight, makes our immune response go down, makes our blood pressure go up, because the body muscles are so tight, it's having to work the heart so much harder to pump the blood around. So, making your body tissues into armor, certainly not useful over a sort of chronic period, certainly not. Now we're going to raise up the right heel, and that hopefully you should get a better feeling of your left foot on the floor. And I augment that better feeling by moving and placing and feeling into that foot. And when you feel ready, it doesn't have to be now, whenever it is, you're going to raise up your foot, and bring the heel into the thigh, and the thigh into the heel, and the hands, of course, come into prayer position, namaskara. And breathe deep, and breathe honest, and breathe expressively. So breathe deep, breathe honest, breathe expressively. Vrikshasana, so named because people used to use a little swing hung from a tree to practice this. Because practice would be long, so we're trying to stay a little longer today. Because while you're here, you're not there, you know, in the future or in the past, or reaching out to this sort of sense of doubt in the present. While you're here, you're not there. Okay, release your hands, release your foot. Let me hear, or at least feel, you take a deep breath. Take a few. Shake out a bit as well if you need to. Get the energy moving around the body. And when you're ready, go ahead with the other heel. Don't forget those deep breaths. It's a big part of everything, of successful yoga. Everything we're doing is actually pointing towards this liberation of the breath. And when you're ready, up comes the heel, and finally, if you're ready, the whole foot placed up, if you can, to the top of the inner thigh, if not somewhere lower on the leg. Many people get quite jumpy about placing it on the knee, but it's not quite as bad as all that, because, you know, if your foot does come to your knee, chances are the weight's going through the heel and the ball of the foot above and below the knee. And actually the collateral ligaments either side of the knee, they're very tough. It takes quite a strong force to cause them much problem. So as long as you're concentrating on a sort of energetic alignment through the muscles, inner leg, outer leg, front leg, back leg, then that becomes a lovely absorbing and well-balanced experience. It's fine, of course, to go below the knee too, although pressing into the shin is more likely to cause that sort of imbalance, causing compression on the meniscus, which is the cartilage between the upper and lower leg bones. 2 or 3 or 4 more deep breaths. Remember, a bit more longevity is useful here. You're doing well. If you lost your balance, that's okay. You're loved. Just come back in, don't you? Simple. Okay, well done. Release your hands. Place your foot. Again, if you need a little shake down, whatever way works. Doesn't have to be much, doesn't have to be at all. Whatever way works. We're going to take the feet hip width apart. Remember I said before when we were doing Tadasana, there's the option to take the feet apart. And I mentioned you should be standing on parallel lines. Same, of course, then here, because we're all going to take the feet apart. Parallel lines between the second and third toe and out the middle of the heel. And those parallel lines should stay parallel, however far forwards they went, however far back they went. So even a micro turn out or a micro turn in would disrupt those parallel lines somewhere along the train track. So we want to make sure that we're not going to disrupt those parallel lines. So we lift and replace the feet multiple times and tune in. The breath is your indicator. We're going to lift from the inner groins, the top of the inner thigh. So raise your arms up. Lift, 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 suck in the tummy, lift, 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 lift. Sometimes moving can help you find more height. Get pressure off the lumbar vertebrae. Inhale, lift from the groins. Exhale, fold. Down to the floor, touch the floor with flat palms. Bend your knees if necessary. Take deep breaths, plural. If your legs are straight, that may just be because you've got fairly short legs, long torso, long arms. That's fine. And you might want to massage out the hamstrings through a little bit of movement. That's fine too. Movement of the feet, movement of the pelvis. Otherwise, as I mentioned, the knees can be bent. We can really focus thereafter on having a soft back. Soft back. You can hold your biceps, or you can hold your elbow points. The relationship between what's happening in your feet and what's happening further up is absolute. So, adjusting your feet will adjust what's happening above the knees, and what happens above and below the knees happens to the knees. So adjusting your feet, adjusting your pelvis, and then you can feel a much deeper sense of openness within the knee joints, balance within the knee joints. Beautiful posture, Uttanasana.
Don't forget, if your back's tight or dull or aching, you should have your knees bent. And in fact, we're all going to bend the knees now anyway to bring the ribs onto the thighs, and then really let go. Your arms, your head, your neck, really let go. Right the way through your back muscles too. From here, we're going to just walk our hands forwards and walk our feet backwards. And we're coming back, of course, into the wonderful Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, aka Gajasana, the elephant. And then I find it useful to pad my paws, that is, sort of lift and replace my hands in a way that's deepening my intimacy with the floor and the present. Deepen your intimacy with the floor and the present. Then we're coming down to hands and knees. Once you're on your hands and knees, take a breath. You might move your pelvis this way or that. You might wag your tail, whatever works for you. But breath is central. Breath is central. So let's let our breaths out. When you're ready, take the leg that's closest to me and place it in the place of the hand that's closest to me. Lift your back knee up and stretch the groin, stretch the thigh. And you might do that more than once. You might do that a few times. Lifting, extending, and landing. Lifting, extending, and landing. You can do that a few times. The idea is to stretch the inner groin, the top of the inner thigh, in a way that's holistic. You know what I mean? Like integrative. It brings together rather than divides. So you can really play with that. You can place the hands in different placements. So you can have them either side of the foot, but you can also have them all on, say, the big toe side of the foot, as I'm showing here. These are various ways in which you can work into your own meditation. That is to say, absorption of yourself into this living moment. So included in different hand positions are also different positions on the foot. The foot itself can roll out if that feels good. And you can repeatedly adjust the back leg as well. When you're ready, perhaps after recentering yourself, we can climb up onto the front leg. If your back knee is pressing into the floor, you can try either having your toes tucked under or not. It makes a difference depending where the bursa, the little fluid sacs in the knee are. But also, most importantly, I've found is that a release of your inner groin upwards. Like you feel the stretch, but then releasing into the stretch upwards, so it releases up. That makes a magical difference to everything, my mind, body, brain, but also on a more mundane but quite satisfactory level, the pressure on my knee. Try it for yourself. Focus on that inner groin. Use your breath to say yes. Use your breath to say yes. Raise your arms when you're ready to. Lightly tone your tummy. Keep saying yes through the inner groin of the back leg. It's a massive meditation because in saying yes to this, in tuning in, as it were, to this, you're tuning out of that, the past and the future, and doubts about oneself and what one's supposed to be in the present. You tune out of that, irritating radio station into something much more beautiful and rich, layered. Come down, well done. Back to hands and knees. Catch your breath, wiggle around if it's helpful. Jaw soft. We're in our last few minutes of the class. So take a few deep breaths. Really nice to know you're there. Thinking of you all regularly. You're not alone. The other foot forwards when you're ready. Same thing. Take deep breaths. We're together. Isn't it nice to be together? So forwards and backwards movements can be helpful. Don't forget the lift of the back knee. You might stretch it. I like a really good stretch on the back knee. Or you might lift and replace again to stretch that very particular area where the psoas inserts on the top of the inner thigh, on the lesser trochanter of the femur. That's just a prominence of bone on the thigh bone, so lesser trochanter of the femur. And after that, the psoas, of course, extends from there across the lateral pubis, underneath the abdominals, into, you can see these in red, the sides of the lumbar vertebrae, and
the first of the blue, they're not blue in reality, of course, thoracic vertebrae. It's not the first, it's actually T12. So it inserts into the discs, which are represented by this sort of clear stuff, the bodies, represented by the color, and the transverse processes, these prominences out to the side of all these lumbar vertebrae, and just the body of the thoracic vertebrae. So anyway, this is the muscle area that we're really stretching the psoas, playing with it backwards and forwards. I hope you still are. You can take both hands to one side. You can roll the other leg out if you want towards the little toe side, the front leg. That sometimes feels good. If it doesn't, then don't do it. If it does, then do. Backwards, forwards. And then eventually, having positioned your knee just right for you, come up, hands onto your leg. Focus on the inner groin, that psoas insertion, which I just pointed out on the skeleton there. Suck in the tummy, raise your arms up. Light tone in the tummy, breathing through your nose. Saying yes to the stretch, the upward release, which is this wonderful side effect of releasing you from all these sort of stories, letting you be fresh and new, releasing you from all the stories so you're fresh and new, and who you really are. You know, the Purusha is the sort of juxtaposed with this idea of the Prakriti. The Purusha is fresh and new and unsullied and unstained and unaffected. Patanjali describes the Purusha by using it, calling it Ishvara in his case. Klesha karma vipakashaya paramishtaha Purusha vishesha Ishvaraha, which means unaffected by klesha, affliction, karma, action, vipaka, fruits of action, and ashaya, accumulation of anything, you know, life stories. You're free in this present moment by merging with Prakriti, who takes you back through non-gripping to Purusha, essence, nature. Come back down when you're ready. Come on to the hands and knees position, and then back to regular kneeling. Don't forget your roll-up blanket under your shins or your ankles if you need it, and blocks under between the heels and buttocks. And then deep breaths, one hand on top of the other, Bhairavi or Bhairava Mudram, and deep breaths. So really focus on letting yourself breathe, and letting the breath happen. Really focus on that. Take your knees a little way apart. Your toes are touching but not overlapping. Knees not too wide. And let yourself drop from the top of the thighs, the groins. And as you drop, you extend, slow and easy. Breathing deep. Draw passive. And for me, it takes quite a while because I'm prioritizing the release of the groins. So I release forwards. I release forwards. Apologies, I just seemed to have something happening on the phone. I hope you're still all there. Still there. I'm not quite sure if you are or not now because there's something happening with the phone. But anyway, I'm presuming that you are. Coming forwards, and forwards. And finally releasing. Take deep breaths with your head down, breathing deep. Head down, breathing deep. Still the groins are releasing. Coming up the way you went down. Groins released, coming up nice and easy. Coming up nice and easy. From there, we're going to lay down on our backs. So when you're ready, you might want something warmer. We're going to lay flat on our backs. Shoulder blades just scoot under the body. Make sure your arms are not too close to the body. And you might need head support. Many people, many of us do, simply because many of us are tight in the neck. And that tightness, of course, does impede the blood flow a little to the brain. So you get low blood pressure going into the brain, which can cause you to daydream, to drift. So having a little support for the head, just to keep the back of the neck a little longer, rather than shorter, rather than compressed, is helpful. Palms facing up, shoulder blades tucked under, breathing through your nose. Feel the full weight of your body. Arms heavy, legs heavy, head heavy. Let your body mind receive the blessing mantra. Absorb it into your whole body, into your heart as I sing. Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Slowly move your fingers, toes, wrists, ankles. When you're ready, bend your legs. Once your legs are bent, tuck the buttocks under and take a deep breath, releasing the lower back entirely into the breath. Totally release the lower back. Roll onto your side when you feel ready, facing away from where you can hear my voice. Lay comfortably, draw your knees up a little, get cozy. Rolling again in your own time, face towards this side.
Hands to the heart. Coming up from the side when you're ready, and then hands to the heart. Comfortable seated position. May all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see goodness, may there be no worry. We'll sing that together. May all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see goodness, may there be no worry. Deep breath in. May all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see goodness, may there be no worry. One more time. May all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see goodness, may there be no worry. Really appreciate your time all. Thank you so much. Another class tomorrow. I'm doing one at 6 p.m. Dean's doing one at 6:30 p.m. Message me for the link and I'll send you the link, and then Saturday morning, and then right the way through all my normal classes, all Dean's normal classes, we're streaming now. Any comments are gratefully received. Any donations are gratefully received. To my bank account 0301 5539 089300. Give what you can, take what you need. So I hope that's clear.